Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast, back after a bit of an all-star break for us on this podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam, right after the Raptors game. How we doing, Sam?
Folks, I really wanted to come back on here. I wanted to be better for you guys. I wanted there to be better circumstances, and unfortunately, there just weren't. It would have made no sense for us to record our main feed episode directly after the win against the Chicago Bulls, because there was another game less than 24 hours after that. And so we knew we had to do it after this game. And this was a game where, on paper, the Suns should win. They're on the road. They're healthy. It's a bad team that they're playing. Yeah. It's a bad team without Jakob Poeltl, their starting center, and still without Brandon Ingram, their midseason acquisition. But they did what they do, and here we are.
What's crazy is like Book and Beal had 30-point games, and they still lost by 18 because of, I think, one of the craziest endings I can remember.
Oh, I totally agree.
I've never seen, like, it was kind of crazy to think about, and this is like what it's like to be a Suns fan at this point, but it was crazy to think about the amount of threes that the Raptors were making in the first half. Like, I was already like, wow, this is crazy. They're making a lot of threes for a team that, not the best three-point shooting team. In fact, one of the worst three-point shooting teams. And then the Suns battled back after Devin Booker got back into the lineup in that fourth quarter. I think they were either tied or within a point or two. Yeah.
2. They cut the lead to 2. It was 105-103.
And the Raptors made 7 threes in the last 3 minutes of the game, essentially, just to completely destroy the Suns on one of the craziest runs I've seen by a team to end the game. And look.
Yeah, quickly and Barrett basically finished them off. In the first half, it was Grady Dick, and Chris Boucher had a really good game as well. And, like, so the Suns lost this game by 18. You look at the box score, the Raptors shot 57% from 3. The Suns shot 25. There was definitely some bad luck here with regards to shooting. We can be honest about that. I mean, literally, they turned into the 2015 Warriors at the end of that game. They were unconscious. It was crazy. And yet, we're so far beyond the point of being able to give this team any excuses anymore. It's just like, you know, even if both teams shot 40% from 3, they probably still would have found a way to lose. At least that's what it feels like, because they just are doing the wrong things all the time and are approaching every game with the same sort of lethargic attitude. Both of us tweeted during this game independently of each other. You did it an hour before I did. I just happened to not see your tweet, so I'm sorry. But both of us said the same thing, exact same thing about this team, which is that neither of us can remember a worse transition defense than that of this Suns team ever.
I
I mean, at least
I
of a
can
Suns
say
team.
with
I
certainty,
cannot remember a worse one.
with certainty that it is the worst transition defense team that we've ever covered on this podcast for the Suns. For sure. Like, that's not really a question. For me, I struggle to think of a worse transition defense team, period, that I've ever seen. Like, I just have never seen a team where
that's where I
the
don't want to go
ball's
too
turned
far,
over
'cause I'm
and then
like-
they just don't, like, one or two of them run back and the other three just stand around. Like, KD doesn't run back at all.
I'm like
especially if it's his turnovers.
2012
KD's not running back.
I feel. Oh, KD was terrible tonight. Are we going to talk about that?
Look, it happens. Like, I mean, I'm not even going to say like the shooting was bad, but like
I don't mind
effort
this-
stuff
here's the
drives
thing.
me crazy.
Yeah, that's what it is. He shot 5 for 15. He didn't make a 3. Okay, that's fine. Book has terrible shooting nights all
Every
the time.
player does.
It's fine.
Like, yeah.
It's fine. Honestly, that part doesn't bother me. Like the other members of the big three made up for his poor shooting tonight. And on other nights, it's going to be the inverse of that. KD's going to shoot 12 of 13 with incredible shot making, and Beal
Like
or
Brad
Booker
tonight,
will go for
yeah.
0. Happens all the time. But the effort is inexcusable to turn the ball over because you get doubled in the post or whatever, and then to just walk back. I mean, really, if you go back and look at the clips, go and watch them. He's not trying to get back. He's walking back.
And he's not the only one. Other Suns players don't run back. The only player I think that consistently runs back on defense, other than when Ryan Dunn plays, which apparently is almost never now. We can talk about that too. But
never. We'll get
Grayson
that'll be
Allen
later,
consistently over the last few seasons just runs back. I mean, he's just a guy who tries to run back in transition. Can't do much at his size or strength or when he's 1-on-3, but he does run back pretty consistently. And to be fair, Nick Richards, when he first got to the Suns, was doing it too. We already got that out of his game a little bit, I think, in the last few games with their complete lack of urgency on. And I think it's frustrating too because there are other things I think that often get blamed on effort. You know, the Suns aren't trying hard when their shots don't go in is sometimes what people say. It's like, well, they're trying to make it. They just miss shots or whatever. Like, there are nights where that happens. But, like, for sure, transition defense, it's two things, I think, with transition defense. It is effort and energy, right? Just running, trying to get back. And then two, often communication, right? Because there needs to be some level of everybody on the floor understanding who you're picking up in transition as quickly as possible. And that requires a well-executed plan by the coaching staff that the entire team understands. So part of it is just that they're not running back. And the other part of it is sometimes when they do run back, they don't know who they're covering. There's guys trying to cover two guys. Two guys are on one guy, and that leaves the rim wide open or a wide open three. There's just a complete lack of communication and plan to their transition defense, even when they do try. So it's like all of these problems compounding on itself over and over and over again. Not to mention, by the way, the fact that so often the transition points come off turnovers, which they've obviously had a problem with multiple years now since Chris Paul left the team. And so, turn the ball over, don't run back. You're basically spotting every team you play 10 points. Like right off the bat. Here's 10 free points. Mm-hmm. Let's just start down 10-0, which, by the way, they often do anyway because they can't start well for some reason. And then there, go from there. You're going to lose every game.
Because on the opposite ends of the court, too, it's like not only are they hemorrhaging transition opportunities, but when they have transition opportunities, they slow down. It was driving me crazy in the win against Chicago the other night. Bradley Beal had the ball. It's fourth quarter, third quarter. I don't remember exactly. Had the ball one possession late in the game. Some Bulls player was on his ass. Like they had a clear 5-on-4, and he slowed down to give that guy time to get up, hustle back down the floor, get back in the play, and then go attack them in the half court. And so it's just like the kindest reading of the situation that I can give with this team in transition specifically, because I think they're a good half court offensive team. And they're probably still a bad half-court defensive team, but not like I don't think they're the worst in the league. Transition, I think they're the worst in the league. The kindest reading I can give is that it's not related to effort, it's related to ability, and they're just too old. That's the kindest reading. And even in that scenario, you're basically admitting that they're terrible and need to be blown up and just like stripped apart for as many young athletes as they can get, because it's an indictment of them that again and again they can go and play these younger teams like Toronto, and these young guys will just run them out of the gym. And I understand this is the second night of a back-to-back, but let's be honest, they've had plenty of better circumstances to win games against under 500 teams than tonight, where they still blow it. and it's just like a bunch of bums who happen to be 23 years old run them out of the gym.
Yep. I mean, it's true. It's going to happen occasionally to any team, but like just to see it night after night after night with this team, it just makes you wonder why you're even watching. And I think for people maybe who are listening to this, some of you probably did watch the last few games. And to be fair, the Chicago game was kind of fun. They didn't shoot enough threes, and that's just something we're going to have to get used to. But they won that one, and they had stretches where the ball was actually moving like a competent NBA team, which they occasionally have done throughout the season. Their offense is not the worst part of the team. It's really the defense, rebounding, turnovers, and transition. But that really where they struggled. But, you know, there are probably people who are listening to this that are probably just giving up on watching them on a game-to-game basis. And at this point of the season, I think that's pretty fair. It's hard to really justify putting a lot of time and effort into ensuring that you watch every possession for this team, which, by the way, we're going to do anyway. Sam and I, we're just going to do it, right? That's what you rely on us for. We're going to do it regardless. But I do think it is, and we'll talk more about this later, I do think it's one of the more pointless stretches I can remember of this team post All-Star break, which it's a team that's probably going to miss the play-in. And it's just what are we really going to do watching a team that's all in like this that's going to probably miss the play-in because of how difficult their schedule is?
I got to be honest. I didn't watch every possession tonight because when Toronto made their 7th 3 in a row with like 90 seconds left,
That's fair. I think Colin Gillespie.
I rage
Colin Gillespie was in pretty quick
that
after that. And look, you can watch. You can watch him on YouTube or wherever they broadcast those G League games whenever you want if you actually want to see what it looks like when he plays. But let's talk about what they've done lately, because I do think they actually made a change, a significant change, I would say, in that they finally sat Tyus. Tyus is no longer, somehow lasted 3/4 of the season, no longer starting for the Phoenix Suns. And what they did is they started the big three, if you want to call them that, the mid three. What are we going to call them? They need a new name, but they started them along with Royce and Nick Richards. And look, I think this was the right decision if you're going to try to play well for the rest of the year. I think if we get to a point where it's pretty clear that they're going to not make the play-in, then maybe priorities should shift pretty dramatically at that point, like keeping the guys who you're going to trade healthy and playing the young guys for the rest of the season. But we can talk about that bridge when we get there, and I don't know how long it's going to take for us to cross that bridge, but it's not going to take very long, is my opinion. But they're no longer starting Tyus Jones. Look, I really didn't think it was going to happen. I just thought Tyus Jones was going to start the rest of the season. Yeah, I just thought this is what it is. They're going to start him. They're going to go down like this, and that's how it is.
He's got the blood libel on Bud, and it was just never going to happen. No, I was really relieved before the Chicago game to see that they finally made this change. And you know what I thought was interesting is it was 2 successive changes that were made, because going to Chicago, they stuck with this 9-man rotation, the same 9-man rotation that Bud had been playing with for a few games, going back before the All-Star break even, where, you know, Bol was in there as well. And so Tyus moved to the bench, but still played, I think, like 22, 23 minutes in that game, like still a decent chunk. Tonight, of course, with not a good result, but the rotation changed yet again. Ryan Dunn was reintroduced, like very situationally. Right. But I would say he was there enough to call it more of like a 10-man rotation. And Tyus played even less. He was down to 15 minutes in this game. To me, that's like, I mean, you could even make the case that you don't have to play him at all. But to be nice to Tyus, I would say a 15-minute per game role compared to the like 28 to 30 that he was playing earlier this season is probably about where he should be
exactly
for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because it's really tough to find more minutes than that, because if you're trying to avoid, against most teams who are bigger than the Suns, like most teams are bigger than the Suns, but against most teams you should try to avoid playing 3 of Tyus, Book, and Beal together. Like, you should try to split up those minutes as much as possible. So,
and even Grayson too, if you throw him in too. So yeah, there's just so many 3-man lineup combinations between those 4 guys, soaking up way too many of the team's rotations, way too many minutes, where they're just not big enough. And yeah, I mean, one stat I want to throw out actually, because I was talking about Nick Richards on Twitter the other day, and you know, like, These stats are not updated to include tonight, but I think they would probably be pretty similar. Even that, notwithstanding. So far, Nick Richards, he's been on the Suns for over a month now, right? It's been like 15, 16 games. The defensive rating when Tyus Jones and Nick Richards play together, which of course that was the starting lineup for quite a while, right? For probably 13 of those games. The defensive rating with Tyus and Nick Richards together on the court is 123, which is absolutely awful. You're not stopping anyone. You don't even have a chance of being competitive in any game against a good team with those numbers. Unless like KD and Book are both going thermonuclear, right? And you score like 140 points, and okay, you have a chance. But 123 defensive rating when both of them play together. When Nick Richards is on the court without Tyus Jones, you want to know what their defensive rating is? It's 107. Now, I think Nick Richards is a flawed defender. He has to play in the drop. He's not actually that much of a rim protector. He's a good rebounder, for sure. I think he's shown us that so far. And he can block the occasional shot, but his timing is not good, as we've seen. He probably gets called for more goaltends than he does blocked shots, which I think is kind of rare for a big man in the NBA,
That's
to
the
be honest.
Bull stat, probably.
Yeah. But 107 defensive rating is good.
Yeah.
Like, league average is probably around 111, 112 these days, maybe even more than that. So a 107 defensive rating is good. The issue is that since Nick Richards was acquired, 72% of all of his minutes as a Sun so far have been sharing the floor with Tyus Jones. And so we really haven't seen much of a chance for Nick to establish himself defensively with a decent point of attack defender out front, not to mention good weak side defenders like KD to his side, or or even, I don't know, maybe occasionally Bull or whatever. We just haven't, or Ryan Dunn, we haven't given him a fair shake. 70% of his minutes have been with this complete traffic cone who's going to like guarantee that it's a 2-on-1 coming right, barreling down
Pick
towards
and rolls,
him. Right at the rim every time. And he just doesn't have a chance. He's an okay defender. As a drop defender, he just does not have a chance. If Tyus is screened out of the play every time and it's a 2-on-1 coming downhill, Nick Richards does not have a chance to stop that. And only in the past 2 games are we finally seeing Bud tangibly recognize that and say, okay, it's time to make a change. Let's do something else. And I think, maybe we're going to see great dividends paid with that over the next 30 games. How many games are they actually going to win? I have no idea. But I do think these are the types of trends that you look at and you point at and you say, okay, well, if they stick with that and a couple other rotational changes, they at least have a chance to right the ship a little bit with their defense. They can at least maybe stop being the 27th best defense in the NBA or whatever they are.
Now, keep in mind what I'm about to say is a flaw of the way that the Suns roster is built and the way the salary is all bunched up between 3 players. But I think you could make the case that when both Tyus and Nick were starting, that they were starting at best the 29th or 30th best starting point guard and starting center. And if you're starting out with, the other 3 guys are who they are, and you can switch them in and out, and they have quite a bit throughout the season. But if you're also continuing to start what is likely the worst starting point guard and the worst starting center in the NBA, or at least you can make a case of both, because the Lakers probably have a worse center rotation than the Suns. They're the only team, I think, that might have a worse center rotation than the Suns.
Yeah, Jackson Hayes and Alex Len.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. It's close, like between the Suns and them.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is it even that much worse? I don't know. It's definitely
close.
worse.
That's all I'll say. Jackson Hayes' defensive numbers.
But you know
are
what? It's
kind of
funny.
This year.
It is funny because like how many years have we heard people just talk about like, oh, the NBA's positionless now. It's all about wings. You just need wings.
That's dead now.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's not true. You do need wings. Like, how are the Celtics good? They have wings, but. Or like, a lot of teams like the Rockets, like there are a lot of teams that are just like, building themselves around long athletic wings. It's definitely a part of constructing your roster, but we're also seeing it play out now that like that's a reductionist, flawed reasoning. You need, at the very least, you need someone. It doesn't need to be a traditional pure point guard like Tyus Jones, but you need someone playing that position who is, maybe 6'4", not 6 foot.
Yeah.
and can still make a play on the ball. And then obviously the center position is very important. Like, I mean, shit. We saw the Suns went to KD.
Yeah.
They went to a small ball 5 to close tonight.
Both of
and
the
we
last
saw how
few
that
games,
worked out
they
for
needed
them.
significant stretches of that time. I think
I'm going to look up their small ball 5 with KD at the center, their net rating tomorrow. And it's not even fair to do that after this game, but it's probably going to be,
they scored
so
21
bad
points in like 3 minutes against it. So yeah, it's going to be really bad.
It was like a 21 to 2 run against that exact
And the Suns were
lineup.
taking
So
more
really
open
bad.
shots than them, I think, in that run. Now, they were wide open too, but the Suns were taking open shots too. It's tough. I think we've mentioned this before, but the idea that it's all about wings, it's not been true for a while. I think it was true for a while there when you were trying to figure out how to build a team to play against the Warriors, but the Warriors are even different now. It's like, if you can have a team that can switch across every single position against the Warriors in their prime, you're probably going to be the best team to potentially play against them. But that's not the case anymore. You have to go against Jokic now. You have to go against a bunch of different teams that play different ways.
Not Embiid.
Yeah, not anymore. I mean, if you do go against Embiid, you have a chance. Yeah.
Okay, can I do another quick segue?
Well, let me just say
go
one
back
thing
to our
real quick.
conversation, but
size plus skill. I'm going to keep saying that over and over again.
Yeah,
because
that's what it
KD
is.
was the
No, that's
original
what it
guy
is.
that was that, by the way. But like, it's just advanced so far beyond that you need size and skill now. You can't just have size, right? And you can't just have skill without size. You need size and skill. It has to be a combination of both of those things, and you can do different things depending on who your star player is, because different star players can bring out different qualities in other players. Like Luka Doncic can have probably a rim running center that doesn't shoot threes and probably be fine. But like, a lot of teams need skill across all of the positions, and that's actually really hard, especially with depth.
And this is why just having 6'7" to 6'9" wings who have skill 10 years ago, that was enough, because other teams were starting Roy Hibbert still. But now it's not like that, because now there is Jokic and there is Wemby, and there are other guys coming down the pipeline, Chet, and really, really skilled big men who are going to kind of dominate for the next generation, potentially. Just about Embiid, because I was just thinking about it. How many teams, like, if you could get just like a trade me out of jail clause here, and you could continue rooting for the Phoenix Suns, but you just do a 1-to-1 roster swap, how many teams would you trade situations with in the NBA right now? Or how many would you not, for the future? This is like a long-term view, not like this season even, where obviously we're not even good. But I was thinking, like, maybe the only team I wouldn't swap situations with right now is the Sixers.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
who owe $120 million combined to Joel Embiid, whose knee is probably fucked, and Paul George, who looks really bad, for like the next 4 years each. I think that might be the one team that I think is more just in more dire straits.
And look, this is actually a perfect setup for the next segment I wanted to do on this podcast, which we're trying. I'm personally spending a lot of my time right now trying to figure out the best way to come up with things to talk about on this podcast for the rest of the season. But look, we might spend 20 minutes at the top of every episode dunking on the team regularly or praising them if they play well, because honestly, that's what we do, right? We talk about the players when they play well. We talk about the players when they play badly. And we had some options to talk about with them playing badly in the last few games, because we didn't even mention it, but Booker was not very good recently as well. But you're talking about the future of this team, and I think that's something that is going to have to be part of the conversation on a weekly basis for this team in a way that it's not usually at this time of year, because usually we're jockeying for playoff positioning. Last year, trying to get up to the 6th seed to avoid the play-in. Like, right, we have things that we can talk about that are related to the basketball that they're playing. But honestly, so many Suns fans are just mentally in the offseason already. And so many of them are. And honestly, it looks like some of the players are too. At times when they're out there, they're already in the offseason at times. So what I wanted to do is have a segment of this podcast every week where we slowly talk about trade ideas for this team. So one trade idea per week, or one concept of a trade per week on this episode, where we can talk about that trade in detail and talk about potentially what the Suns could look like if they were to make this trade. I'm coming up with one this week because I'm surprising you with this topic. I just told you about it right before we recorded. And if you want to come up with one next week or in the future, we can do that, swap different trade ideas every week. But I think it's going to be easy to come up with ideas because the Suns are definitely going to make moves this offseason, and it appears that Kevin Durant is no longer going to be on the Suns team. So at the very least, we can come up with Kevin Durant ideas. And if you've missed it, if you haven't listened to all our episodes, Brian Windhorst has said that the Suns are probably going to trade Kevin Durant. I forget who all the other reporters are, but they're all on top of it. We know they're all saying that it's likely going to end this summer. And why would he want to play on this team? Like, truthfully,
it's can't we just admit it's the best thing for both parties? The fit doesn't work here. It's not entirely KD's fault, although some of it is, but it's like the fit doesn't work and he wants to play on a contender and we're not a contender. So the best thing they could do is to work to move him somewhere where it just makes sense. I think we're going to see exactly what the trade market is for him after the playoffs, once a few teams that were maybe hopeful about making deep runs actually end up flaming out. That's when teams are kind of at the peak of their panic phase, and that's where it's going to be particularly interesting for us. But yeah, in the meantime, we know that there are going to be changes. And I think, as we come up with some trades over the next several weeks, anything's on the table. It could be KD trades, but it could also be still trying to move off Beal. I think that's going to continue to be difficult. It could be Book. Book's on the table.
Why would we not talk about anyone?
Royce and Grayson are on the table. That those would be boring. I think you could still get picks for them. I think you have to have
some justification of the trades that you're making. Like the idea of giving the Suns a future, I think, is a legitimate challenge that you have to contend with. And if you can figure out a way to do that with any trade, we're not going to avoid talking about any topic, I think, on the rest of this podcast, because what are we going to fill time with if they just continue to lose? And on behalf of the Rockets, who own their pick. So, they're going to be in the lottery. The Suns could potentially have the number 1 overall pick if they continue to lose, and that pick goes directly to the Houston Rockets. So we'll see how that goes. But I want to start with one that is inspired by the Podfather, Bill Simmons, who was in Austin doing his body language doctor stuff, staring at the Suns going, oh no, it's going to be bad. I'm sure it's going to be a topic on his podcast this week, but they also recorded a podcast in Austin live, and in Austin there was Spurs fans. It was it was quite a few Spurs fans were at that live podcast recording, and Bill Simmons brought up the idea of Kevin Durant going to the Spurs. And I actually think it's a really interesting time to mention that. And I should say KD, 1 year left on his contract, has a ton of leverage in where he goes, because the only way a team's going to give up assets for him if they believe that he can sign an extension with them. And I believe he could sign up to 2 years this summer, if I'm not mistaken. So you're potentially trading what will likely be a few years of Kevin Durant to whatever team he goes to, because he's going to have to agree, of course, behind the scenes, that he would be willing to sign an extension there. Maybe there's a team that's willing to give up assets for him for 1 year and try to convince him. That's not something that's completely out of the question. That just happened with the Warriors and Jimmy Butler, and they were able to sign him to an extension. It happened with Kawhi Leonard from the Spurs in the past, ended up not signing an extension, so you never really know. But Kevin Durant to the Spurs. Why would they do it? Pretty clear, right? They have De'Aaron Fox now, and they have Victor Wembanyama, who is out for the rest of the season. Assuming he's healthy enough to play next year, which I think they feel confident he is. By the way, I haven't mentioned it on the podcast. Sucks pretty bad that he's not playing the rest of the season. I was looking forward to finding reasons to watch other teams, and I'm frustrated sometimes by watching playoff teams with how good they are. So I was planning on just watching some Wembanyama for the rest of the season and just watching him develop and grow, because he's going to be in our lives for the next, hopefully, a long time.
Hopefully a long time.
So
yeah.
I was hoping to watch that, but he's out. So if they can put a team together, that's De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Durant, Victor Wembanyama, not only does that have potential to be really good next year, I also think they kind of fit together really interestingly, because Wembanyama shoots a ton of threes. De'Aaron Fox is really fast,
I agree with that,
so he can run back. And also, if there's any defensive, weak side stuff that KD is good at still next year, which I'm sure he will be, he has the ability to do that. and along with what Wembanyama brings defensively, makes a lot of sense. Now, having said that, of course, what I did to look at these trades is try to figure out the salaries for the Spurs next year. Now, De'Aaron Fox has a player option, so they have the ability of not signing De'Aaron Fox until after they've made trades. So they can trade less salary for KD than what KD makes and eat that salary into their cap and then sign De'Aaron Fox after that because they are going to own whatever bird rights they have for him. So just mentioning that to just get that out of the way, because I think De'Aaron Fox is obviously going to sign a longer-term deal. And honestly, maybe they can get him for a little less if they trade for KD. So getting up to what KD's salary is really difficult, but in this case, you actually don't really have to get up to his total salary because they could.
Do you have a target number in mind?
So I have
or like a general
multiple
baseline?
2 trades I'm going to pitch to you.
Okay.
And
wow.
I want to know which one you like more. And by the way, I don't know that the Spurs would do either of these, because I think that there is a world where the Spurs go, actually, no, we like being young and we like keeping these young guys, because there's really no way to do it. Like, unless you want to do a trade around Harrison Barnes and Keldon Johnson, which gets you up to like 37 million. Yeah, 36.5 million. If you want to just do those 2 plus picks, they would love to do that, I'm sure.
That would be San Antonio's first offer, and the Suns should not take that.
And the Suns should not take that, right? So just to break down their salaries, $27 million for Vassell, $17.5 for Keldon Johnson, built to be traded, by the way. It's a salary that declines next year, so they want to trade him. Harrison Barnes expiring $19 million next year. Obviously, Wemby, $13 million. They're not going to trade him. $9.5 for Castle, $7 million for Sohan, although I don't know if that is related, if he's eligible. Now that I'm thinking about this, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. He might be eligible to be a restricted free agent this year. Malachi Branham, and then a couple of smaller salaries beyond that. So, the 2 trades I want to pitch to you, and less that they would do this, more curious what you would want more.
Well, let's just, quickly before you even get to that, just a little bit more about kind of selling it from the Spurs perspective. Wemby shoots a lot of threes, and De'Aaron Fox is an advantage creator, and I think that's the big thing that the Suns are missing. I actually think, Bradley Beal has done a really good job lately of, he has 25 plus points in 4 of his last 5 games. And of course the Suns are 1-4 in those games. But it's even when he's taking on more of the scoring load, there's an ideal that Brad cannot live up to on this team of being that combination of driving, putting pressure on the rim, touching the paint, and looking for his own shot, which I think he's pretty good at, versus being a decision maker with the ball in his hands, like a playmaker, which he's not very good at. And De'Aaron Fox is probably a pretty good balance of those 2 things. With the exception of maybe, I don't know, Shea, and I guess maybe there's a couple other point guards, but De'Aaron Fox's mix of playmaking and speed is something that's really rare to find. And KD could absolutely mesh with a guy like that, I think. And Wemby's Wemby. So I really think it could work, but hit me with what your
So there's 2 things that I think you could justify. The other thing I want to mention is Devin Vassell, who's 6'5", and Stefan Castle. I'm not even sure how to say his first name. Stefan, right?
Stefan.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a world where they could lose one of those 2 guys and be okay with it because they have the other. So I'm starting off with trades that loses 1 or 2 of those guys for the Suns. And the question is, would you rather have Vassell, who is signed for next year along with 3 more years after that, so has a very long-term deal, which means maybe they wouldn't want to trade him at all. Maybe that's the end of that conversation. But maybe they would, right? Because they have Castle, and now you have KD, so you could try to win next year. Vassell and Harrison Barnes, plus we'll just say pick or picks, or maybe none. I don't know. Whatever picks the Suns can get, essentially, in this trade.
Do you know what picks they have?
Quite a few, I believe, because they didn't really give up much for De'Aaron Fox, as we know. I don't have a list of it in front of me, but I did look at it earlier. But I'm assuming that they're not going to give up much in this scenario, because it's a 1-year deal for KD, and they're giving up actual good assets, good players. So Devin Vassell and Harrison Barnes you get up to essentially $40-something million in this case, right? KD makes like 54 next year. So the Suns will shed like $10 million of salary, which doesn't really get them anywhere super exciting as far as the second apron, but they do have outs if they can find a way to get rid of other guys.
I mean, honestly, if I would need to run the numbers, but like if you're trading, if like you said, because the Spurs can re-sign De'Aaron Fox later, if he rejects his player option, right? So like theoretically, if you're trading KD's 55 for 40 million-ish coming in, and then you also do the thing where you cut the non-guaranteed contracts of Cody Martin and Vasim Micic, who have not played for the Suns yet, like you're close. I think you're really close to hitting that number at that point.
So you have some out potentially if you could trade, Bradley Beal for multiple players. Maybe you get rid of one of those players and take back less salary. Maybe there's ways to get out of it, essentially. We'll talk about Bradley Beal on another episode and whether or not the Suns can trade him. So that's an option. Vassell and Harrison Barnes, right? Harrison Barnes expiring, not an excellent player, but like a player that can eat minutes on your team in the regular season, who plays relatively smart and is taller for the Suns. Like he would be the tallest wing that they have after getting rid of KD. Or would you rather do Castle, Sohan, and Keldon Johnson?
Yeah, I'd do that.
So the idea of the Castle, Sohan, Keldon Johnson trade, of course, is that Sohan, who may or may not even be trade eligible, right? This is all conceptual anyway. A player who has some high-level potential is a good athlete. Castle is like pretty high potential young player, and a player who famously they did not want to include in any version of any trade for De'Aaron Fox, which they didn't need to, clearly. That was the situation that they were in, and they were able to pull it off without that. So you get two young players in this case, along with Keldon Johnson, or you could say Harrison Barnes. Like, honestly, that third player in this case doesn't really matter. The question is, would you rather have Devin Vassell signed for multiple years, who's a pretty good player right now, has struggled to stay healthy, but is a pretty good player right now, signed for multiple years, or Sohan and Castle, who are two young players? Sohan, not been great, if we're being honest here. Like, not been... He's high potential, I think, in that he's super athletic, but, like, not very skilled as a basketball player. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think you have to factor that in, whereas Castle has shown a lot of skill.
The annoying part about Sohan, honestly, is that you'd be acquiring him in his fourth year, right, assuming that he hasn't signed that extension yet. So you have to be the one to evaluate him. And then, with a lot of those types of players who are just on the bubble of being a starter, it's like those are the types of players who are asking for $20 million per year extensions now out of restricted free agency. And do you really want to commit to that, especially when maybe you just got out of the second apron? So that would be the question on Sohan. But honestly, just the question of Castle versus Vassell. Castle is 4 years younger than Vassell. He's a rookie, whereas Vassell's in year 5 and already has a bit of an injury history. And I still think Vassell is good, and I wouldn't mind
6'5",
to have him
which is
locked
funny, right?
into... Yeah, I mean...
That's the problem with Vassell.
Yeah,
like, if Vassell was 6'7", first of all, maybe they wouldn't trade him. But if he was, like, you'd do that in a heartbeat.
No, I mean, I think it's also just like maybe, that is more of a play at convincing Devin Booker that you're trying to compete right now, because the truth is Stephon Castle is not a winning player right now. But I think his ceiling is much higher than Devin Vassell's. And that's tough to balance with what you're trying to do with Book next year. But I think if you get Keldon Johnson plus Stephon Castle plus Sohan, it's 3 players instead of 2 like your other proposal, and then a couple picks. Those are 3 role players you can plug into your rotation next year. And you would still have way more work to do to try and be like competitive if you were keeping Booker. And convincing yourself that, oh, you're a play-in team, you're a playoff team, whatever. But it's a start. I think it strikes the right balance of like we're trading KD. We're not just trading KD for a guy who is, under the age of 27. We're trading him for a prospect who we think could spend 10 years in a Suns uniform and be really fucking good. And potentially Stephon Castle could be that.
Yeah. I think if you're the Suns, like what the Spurs will want to do, I'll mention it again, is Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes for KD. And maybe there's a world where the Suns do that. Like if the Spurs have a top 7 pick this year and they're saying we'll include that 7th overall pick, maybe the Suns would still do that. And they have 2 players who aren't very good, but then they get a really high pick that they can use to pick a player this year or to make another trade if they want to try to potentially find a different kind of trade. That's something that maybe the Suns would consider. But to me, if I'm the Suns, I would say we're not even starting this conversation unless you include and then make a list of guys that you want and then try to figure it out from there. So if Sohan's not trade eligible, right, put whatever their first round pick guy that they draft in that trade instead, and then you get Castle plus whoever they draft plus Keldon Johnson.
Castle obviously has a very, very long way to go as a shooter. He couldn't shoot in college, and now he shoots 28% from deep this season. Yeah. Again, he's a rookie. But after the Chris Paul years, after the Tyus Jones year, singular, just imagine having a point guard who is 6'6", maybe 6'7" with shoes, 6'9" or 6'10" wingspan. That's what we're talking about. We're trying to make this team athletic again. We're trying to make them actually play defense again. That's a foundation for a backcourt that Suns haven't had in a long time.
Now, if it was a Vassell trade, which maybe they wouldn't do, I'll mention it again. How would you feel about a backcourt of Devin Booker? The Devin and Devin backcourt, if you will, of Vassell and Book.
I think it'd be fine. It's still a really just awkward fit with Bradley Beal, because I think
you have to trade him. Those guys, I mean, of course you have to trade him in all of these scenarios, right? We're not going to do a fake Bradley Beal trade this week. Maybe we'll get to one later and find one that actually makes sense. It's going to be like whoever it is, yes, right? That's going to be the conversation for any Bradley Beal fake trade. Might not be a long conversation if we start introducing Bradley Beal fake trades into this, but who, by the way, 12 for 15 today. Played really well offensively. Can't seem to create shots for anyone other than himself lately. That's just where he's at right now. But yeah, just want to give him some credit for offensively playing really well the last few games, in fact, as far as scoring goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's scoring. He's scoring a lot. I actually thought against Chicago he made some effort plays too. I'm not going to fall over myself applauding for that, because to an extent I think if you're in the starting lineup, if you're playing 35 minutes, you need to be making effort plays. But Brad has been making more effort plays of late, I think. And yeah, that's good to see. We should probably talk a little bit more about Ryan Dunn in the sense.
Yeah, let's talk about Ryan Dunn right now. Actually, it's a good time. I think we finished that segment. And is Ryan Dunn going to play more?
Wait, did I get a definitive? Wait. Can I get a definitive answer from you on which of the two you prefer?
I think I would probably. Well, it depends. I think. I guess I would say that if the Suns have a Bradley Beal trade lined up, where they can get, I don't know, a center and something else that can actually play with this team, I think I would actually consider that Vassell one. I think Vassell's kind of an interesting player and actually could be pretty good. And his contract, although it seems like a lot of money, I think over time will start to look even better. It's like $27 million over the next few years.
No, yeah, 20. It's a flat $27 million for 4 more years. That's nothing in 3 years' time. Assuming he can stay healthy and is sort of in his
prime. So that doesn't seem that bad to me. I'm just not. He hasn't been as impressive as I wanted him to be this season, or I expected him to be. Now that could just be kind of a weird year for him, but he, last year he averaged 19.5 points per game in the 62 games he's played. He's played 39 games this year, including coming off the bench for quite a few of them. Is only averaging 15 points a game. So I don't know exactly how good he's going to be, but I would consider that one if you can find a way to trade Bradley Beal. Outside of that, I think the idea of Castle plus another young prospect is actually pretty exciting. I just don't know what the Spurs would actually do. By the way, Greg Popovich not coming back to coach the rest of this season. Who knows if he'll be back next year as well. And if they're just in this new era of the Spurs and the uncertainty of Wemby, I think they'd have to feel pretty great about Wemby playing next year and then really go for it next year, which I don't think it's that. How old is De'Aaron Fox at this point? 27, 28 years old?
He might even be 29.
Yeah, they kind of have to go for it if that's the future of this team, and what they're planning on being.
Oh no, he just turned 27.
Okay, yeah, so go for it now. Go for it now. Why not? I know it's KD though. So
he's a point guard who relies on a quick first step, right? Let's be honest, his prime is hitting a little bit earlier than he's not going to be Steve Nash, who peaks in his 30s. He's just
exactly. Okay, let's talk about Ryan Dunn. You brought him up. We should talk about him. I had him on my outline as well. We skipped it in the first segment here. So it doesn't seem like he is basically in the rotation right now at all. And now he did play today against the Raptors, but it was the second night of a back-to-back. So I wonder if like how much of that was because of that. And he didn't play much at all in this game. And I'll be honest, like he hasn't looked very good lately either, defensively or offensively. But it is not to say I don't think he should play. But I do think like if you're Bud and you're just trying to find ways to win games, I actually do kind of understand not playing him. I think where that is a problem is the Suns fan base is going, what are you doing that for? Like, just play the guy because we want to have some level of a future for this team. And that is kind of where I think the frustration is coming for me personally and a lot of Suns fans.
Also, you know, it's not even like Oso, where they send Oso down to play with the Valley Suns occasionally so he can get reps. Ryan is just rotting there if you're not going to play him. You know, because they're not sending him down to the G League, at least not yet. If they, you know, take that next step, then I think fans might really start to riot. But he's played a total of 21 minutes in the past 5 games for the team. He played 5 minutes against Memphis, 10 against Houston, 20 seconds against San Antonio. Remember that one? Checked in at the end of the third quarter for one possession. Did not play against Chicago, the only game they won. Correlation is not causation, but hey. And then 6 minutes tonight. And there's just no way for him. I mean, you can see it like when he came out tonight. The energy immediately picked up. He's jumping all around the place because he's like, shit, I need to earn these minutes. But there's no way for him to develop any sort of rhythm under those circumstances. Totally, like, he needs a consistent. Earlier in the season, we were saying he shouldn't play less than 30. And I understand his shooting regressed. So, okay, maybe you can't do that. But, like, to not be playing him at least 15 minutes a night is criminal malpractice. I mean, it's actually kind of infuriating. I, for the most part, am defending Bud in this kind of transitional phase that the team is in. Like, I certainly don't think adding another coach to the body count is going to do anything, but him not playing Dunn right now is completely inexcusable.
I agree. I'm not really at the point of defending Bud, but I think I agree with the take on Ryan Dunn just in general. I think there's actually been a lot of weird coaching decisions lately, but that is like one of the most obvious ones. The Suns struggle with defense. I can't even imagine like where they rank defensively over the last 15 or so games. It's got to be really bad. You know, they just
definitely bottom 5, easily bottom 5.
And so like worse. What are they doing to counter that? Nothing. Maybe a little bit of Bol minutes here and there, but Bol, as much as he can maybe stop someone from driving to the rim occasionally, I think his impact on the overall defense for the team with the amount of minutes he can play in a role, it's not going to have like a super positive impact overall. Whereas Ryan Dunn, actually, I think having someone that is willing to do the things that he does, which we mentioned quite a bit, especially when Josh Okogie was on the team. By the way, we have to give out some sort of hustle award on this week's Patreon. I'm not sure who that's going to go to, but having someone that's willing to do all that stuff for this team, when so much of the team is unwilling to do it, at least it gives us something to watch and something to root for. And I think for fans, it's really tough. Like I think you can make the case that playing Ryan Dunn benefits the team this year. And I think you could make the case that playing Ryan Dunn doesn't benefit the team this year at all. Like he's not necessarily going to help them win games right now. I think you could actually make that case. There's probably data that backs that up over the last stretch of games that he's played.
What I will say, his basic, it's kind of an oxymoron, but the basic advanced stats, right? Like the box score derived advanced stats like BPM, VORP, whatever, think that Ryan Dunn is one of the worst players on the team. And that's just because he can't shoot. He doesn't actually get a lot of steals, even though he applies that pressure. Just from the eye test, though, it's one of those situations where like I personally just have to push back on the use of those advanced stats because I just think you watch him play and you watch the pressure that he applies and the willingness to pick up guys, way earlier than most players on this team will pick up players, before half court or whatever. And it's infectious. It just makes a difference for other guys on the court defensively. So I think he's better than his advanced stats say, but also, yes, I agree. His advanced stats are
I think that it's really how you feel about this is a measurement of whether or not your faith is completely lost that they're going to continue to win games this year. Because if it is, and by the way, mine was a while ago. Like, it was I've told people on this podcast to divorce yourself of expectations from this team if you want to have any enjoyment watching them play for the rest of the season. And I've already done that. So my expectation is they're not going to win a lot of games to close the season out. So if I'm starting there, and I think a lot of Suns fans are, then what is the rest of the season for? And that's actually a conversation I wanted to talk about, because you start with developing the young guys. There's only a few of them. Like, I understand that you're going to probably get killed with Oso on the floor, but if you get killed with Oso on the floor and over the course of the season, he starts to gain confidence and starts to play better, and then you could take that into next year, along with Ryan Dunn gaining confidence and playing better and maybe expanding his role a little bit more into next year, that's beneficial for this team long term. And at some point, they're going to do that. They're going to shift with this season. But I think the hope, maybe from the top down, from the team, is that they're going to win some games and actually play through it. But let me tell you this. The Suns have played 30 games against teams over 500 this year. Do you know their record in those games?
I think I just looked it up. Wait, how
30.
many games did you say? They are, I don't know,
very
12
close,
and 18.
11 and 19 in those 30 games.
Okay.
But in the last 10 games they've played against teams over 500, they're 2-8. So it's trending down from there. Do you want to know how many games in the rest of the season the Suns have against teams over 500?
This was a stat I brought. I don't know how many games, but I know the average remaining opponent for the Suns, it's the hardest strength of schedule remaining in the NBA. The average opponent has a 55% win percentage, which is equivalent to like a 45-37 team over 82 games.
18.
So it's like a playoff
18
team. 18
games left.
You know what's the other thing? I'm pulling up this stat right now, but just to demonstrate, last 10 games, okay, here it is. In the last 10 games, both KD and Book are averaging 39 minutes per game.
It's exactly right.
And they're still losing.
I actually saw somebody.
I mean, it's time to give up the ghost, man. Like, they could play 34 minutes, and you're still going to lose.
Yeah, I know, and you're not going to hurt them. Yeah,
and
exactly.
You've opened up some minutes for, like, without even doing anything. You've opened up a few.
I saw somebody ask you online who should play less, and my first thought was, Book is averaging like 40 minutes over the last 6 games. Like, KD is averaging way too many minutes at this point of his career, period, not just over the last stretch. And also, you're probably going to trade him this offseason. So what are you doing? You have to keep him healthy and put him on ice if you can. 2 games against the Celtics, 2 games against the Grizzlies, 1 game against the Cavs, 1 game against OKC, 1 game against the hottest team in the league, which is the Denver Nuggets, and another game against the New York Knicks. Those are the teams with the best records that they're playing for the rest of the season. They're going to struggle to win those games, and there's a chance that out of those 18, like, if they are trending in the same way that they have been, they win maybe 5 of them. You know? And if we go 5-13 over those games and maybe win a few against the poor teams, like they just lost one against a poor team tonight, they're not guaranteed to win all of those. They're not going to make the play-in. Like, they're just not going to make it. It would take the most surprising stretch of the season by this team in order to win enough games to get there solidly. And I just don't think there's any way to really guarantee that that's going to happen. So if you start from that understanding and really getting that, which not all Suns fans are like that. They're not looking at this kind of stuff. But I know everyone listening to this podcast probably cares about that kind of thing. But if you start with that understanding, then you really want to question what the point is of not playing Ryan Dunn. Because I actually do think that maybe Suns fans overrate how good Ryan Dunn is right now. But I think that's okay in a lot of ways. Like, I just think, yes, he's not very good, but he also is one of the players that has potential to get a lot better over the course of even just the last 25 games or whatever they have left. And that's enough to me to play him those minutes.
And even just in his minutes this season, I feel like you've witnessed him. Yes, there's been the shooting regression. No one can deny it. He came out the gate and just kind of convinced us he was a better shooter than he actually is. There are other aspects of his game, though, that you've already seen him grow. How about everything we talked about with him as a pick-and-roll finisher? His ability to hit that floater over the top. He's doing it. Oso's worked on that shot for 5 years, and I trust Ryan to hit that shot more than Oso already. And I think he just developed that shot in the last 25 games. So you have to give him the reps because he does have the work ethic, but also the ability, I think, to get better over time.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you don't play him, just what are we doing
just
here?
test some limits in there. Put Colin Gillespie in too. Like let's see if he could be an NBA player as well. To me, he seems like an NBA player, if I'm being honest. Monte Morris didn't play today as well. I'm like, just find ways to put Colin Gillespie in, see if he's actually somebody who could contribute on the Suns sometime in the near future. Like, I don't know. Like, Ty Jerome wasn't exactly high on a lot of people's lists as far as a contributor in the NBA this year. Now he's on the best team in the NBA by a lot of metrics. So find things that you could potentially use next year with the rest of this season. And I know in some ways it's giving up on this season. And look, and I know it's going to hurt for Houston to get a high draft pick out of it, but I don't know, maybe that player ends up on the Suns anyway. Like maybe that's a future trade that we do on our trade segment on the podcast on a future episode. So yeah, it is what it is. I just wanted to talk about that. Do you have anything else you're going to look for with the rest of this season? Like, I would like Devin Booker to play better because I think he has had such an odd season, and there are times where he looks like himself, and there's times he doesn't, and he's going to be on the team next year. So I would like that to trend upwards and not downwards in any way.
Yes, I mean, so echoes of what I was talking about earlier, like with Nick Richards, he's a guy who's going to be under contract next year and hopefully in a backup capacity. You know, hopefully they figure out a better long-term starter. But I want to build some momentum, some consistency with Nick and really see what he can do defensively if you don't just kind of, you know, throw him to the dogs every game by continuing to play him with Tyus all the time. So that's one thing. And then Bradley Beal. You know, in the best case scenario, Bradley Beal averages, like he has been, 25 points per game for the rest of the season on really high efficiency, and, you know, you kind of up his trade value. And even if you can't do that, you know, then he'll be on the team regardless, and we want the best possible version and the healthiest possible version of Bradley Beal on this team going forward. So that's a guy you have to continue to root for.
Have you watched the Luka Lakers at all? No,
I actually haven't. I haven't caught one of those games.
They're just winning, man. It's kind of bizarre.
I know.
Like maybe they're actually good, and they're finding a way to do it with the worst or potentially worst center rotation.
Well, this is the other reason. This is the other reason that Houston is interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty about Houston as a potential KD trade partner. But it's like, they do need the help. They're not actually one of the top 3 teams in the Western Conference, like it maybe appeared they would be. Some interesting stuff going on around the league too, like the Knicks. Every time they play a top team in the East, they just get thrashed.
Yeah,
you know, they got thrashed by the Cavs. They got thrashed by the Celtics, and I think even the Pacers are like not closing in on that. Like I don't think the Pacers are going to overtake them in the standings, but I actually think I just saw the Pacers have a better record against plus 500 teams than the Knicks this season.
You want to hear a stat that I was sent in DMs? Sorry to this person if he didn't tweet this out, but. There are 346 players who've contested at least 50 shots against top 10 offenses. Complex stat already.
Repeat that.
346 players to contest at least 50 shots against top 10 offenses.
Okay.
Karl Anthony Towns ranks last in field goal percentage on the contested shots. Players are shooting 63% from the field against Karl Anthony Towns when they play against top 10 offenses. Karl Anthony Towns has been pretty good for the Knicks. Like, I don't want to say that he's been bad, but it's kind of insane that when they play against a good team, he's getting abused. Like, just absolutely abused.
Well, I wonder where Mikal Bridges is in that stat too, to be honest. You know, like, as we talk about hindsight is 2020 and whatever with the KD trade, but it's like, Mikal, you know, there are Suns fans who still hold a lot of love in their heart for Mikal. I'm one of them, but man, the Nets really got a heist there 5 first-round picks for Mikal was insane.
Yeah.
He just does not rise to the level that the Knicks need him to in those important games to live up to that value.
Well, he's not worse. Because Karl-Anthony Towns is literally the worst in that stat. So kind of a crazy one in there. Eventually, I think we're going to have to find a way to work some draft talk into these podcasts as we get closer and closer to that. Because the Suns have a pick this year. It's going to be 30th for sure, but they have a pick. So we might as well talk about players that maybe we'll introduce a new player every week on this. We're going to have to turn into a Draft Guys podcast, change our hats. Put on the draft guy hats.
Yeah, I'm not a draft guy, as everyone knows, but I have been dipping my toes into like the very basics. I was reading up on Johnny Broome yesterday. There's your first name, because he just had like a 30-point, 15 rebound game. He's a 5th-year senior for Auburn. He's a center, like a little bit undersized, maybe 6'10", but really, really productive stats. Can pass, can block shots, can rebound, can kind of just do everything at a really high level at the college level. And because he's 5th-year senior, obviously he's not like in the lottery or anything. So Tankathon actually has him 30th on their big board, maybe going to the Suns. What I'll say about the draft so far is, with regard to process, a lot of times people say best player available. And I am inclined to agree with that, except for with the Suns, I really think it needs to be best athletic player available this time around, right? Like, I feel like we need to give it a slight caveat of, I don't care technically if you're taking a point guard, a wing, or a big, but take a guy who gets up and down and plays fast and like maybe can contribute to a decent defense, because they need a lot of help in that regard.
All right, that's all we got this week. We got to an hour somehow, Sam. I'm actually surprised that we got to an hour so easily. I'm not going to underestimate our ability to do that occasionally, but thank you, everyone, for listening. I want to give a special thanks to everyone that's in our Patreon. I know this is a tough time to watch the Suns, but we appreciate all you guys sticking around because, it really helps us out a lot. So thank you, everyone, for that. But we'll be back with a Patreon episode this week. Who knows what we're going to be talking about? I don't know. Hustle Player of the Week on that one. We'll see who that is. But thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.